Welcome to this edition of the Horse with No Name podcast. We are midway through our decade in review as we take this week to look back at the 2014-15 academic year. Big year for basketball, big year for some of our men's sports as well as some of our women's sports as well. We are joined, myself and Bob, by our former men's basketball head coach, Marshall Tague. Marshall, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Zach and Bob, and looking forward to this. Should be a good time.
We're looking forward to it as well. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to take a look back at the season. We're going to kind of go piece by piece a little bit, and we'll park a few places and then ask you about some of the highs and lows. It was a season mostly full of highs, and then there's the one or two lows there that we'll get to. But then it was just a good mixture. If you joined us last week, we had Albert Suniga on the podcast. And we talked a lot about the 13-14 year, obviously, but then kind of at the end went into 14-15 a little bit and how much that 13-14 year built into 14-15. And we'll kind of do the same this year as 14-15 sort of builds into 15-16. It's really a 3-year run here for the men's basketball team where there's lots of success, but you can sort of almost see the actual building blocks of what will become for each the next season's team. So, Marshall, the opening game of the season, it's at Messiah. We're coming off of a good year in 13-14, like we talked about with Albert last week. It's a good team. We did well at NCCA Nationals, made kind of a surprise run to the NEAC Final, hosted the NEAC Final, lost to a Morrisville State team that was better than us and went on to the Elite Eight that year as well. But expectations are pretty high, and let's see what we can do, build off this. A year older, CJ's way different than he was as a freshman, physically, mentally. Dre's jumping from everywhere. Albert and Nahir are seniors. They're ready to go. But the opener goes horribly wrong. We lose to Messiah, 92-66. Yeah. What happened that day? So I have 3 questions here for you. You can take them one at a time, or maybe they're all the same answer. I'm not sure. What happened that day? What happened the next day at practice? And then what happens over the course of that next few days where we start to win some pretty big games that we're going to talk about here in a second?
Yeah. I remember a few things, and I'll back up just a little bit. You know, we went into, before we officially practiced on our team retreat, one of my favorite experiences as a coach. It was really great. We had this theme that we brought with us from the previous year, as you know, this unfinished business stuff. And we all really kind of took hold of that and bought into it and said, yeah, we've got unfinished business. We had a great retreat, and you know, our strength conditioning was great, and everything was really good. We had great practices and great workouts, and everything was really good. Kind of like what you said, everything was set, you know, and ready to go. And we get to Messiah, and LBC is not supposed to beat Messiah, right? However, you know, supposedly we have a better team, and this will be it. And it was a bad storm of us not doing things well, and they played really well. And in fact, I looked back on their year. I don't think they shot the ball as well as they did that year, the rest of the year. But to their credit, they executed, and they got guys open. They knocked down threes, and we were awful. And I think part of that was just a little bit of things are just going to happen. You know, we put the work in, we're here, things are just going to happen. So that was kind of leading up to it. You know, and that day, it was tough. It was a tough loss because it was like, whoa. Are we good? Are we not good? Are we, you know, that sort of thing. And what happened the day after was one of my probably top 2, 3, 4 film sessions that I can remember. And what we looked at was the first 10 possessions, offensive and defensive, and there wasn't anything right about any of them. And so it's like, you know, as a coach, it's like, man, what did we do for the last however many weeks, you know? And the guys watching it were like, well, the same thing. What do we do? What are we doing? But what was really great about it, and what was great about that team, is no one blamed each other. We just took it on and took responsibility for ourselves and said, man, we were awful. And not only were we awful, but we were awful at the things that we do daily, and worked on every single day. I mean, simple things like transition defense, this guy's not getting back or this or that. And it was a big time wake up call. And it was like, okay, we have to do things right. It doesn't matter if how good a talent or whatever we have, we got to do things right if we want to be successful. And that was really the first time that year that that hit home, and it took one game. And it was a great time, of sitting together, watching some things together, taking responsibility together, and said, okay, let's move forward now. Let's go.
And the team quickly did move forward. 3 days later, we hosted Elizabethtown here, and we beat them. It was the first time we ever beat Elizabethtown in our program's history. They're a cross-county opponent. So that's a big win. We beat Eastern after Thanksgiving. It was only the second time we ever beat them, first time in 20 years, 25 years. Following our first NEAC win, we beat Bryn Athyn. We talked about the Bryn Athyn game from last year.
Yeah.
Albert made that same noise. That's fine. So we beat Bryn Athyn. It's kind of a revenge game, get to handle them. Yeah. And then kind of a strange game. The following day, we hosted Cincinnati Christian on a Sunday. Right. I think that they needed some games, and we were kind of, hey, if you're out here, you might as well come over. And we beat them. And it's a scholarship school. And then we crushed Mount Aloysius before going home for Christmas. So you get this loss, and then but then this great film session, these good practices, and now all of a sudden you're hanging your hat on, like, if the season ends here, we're good. Like, beat E-Town, check. Like, beat a scholarship school, great. Like, stick it to Bryn Athyn after last year, great. Like, everything's, and this is just the start. Take us through those next couple these games here where, okay, that the season, it's there's lots of different parts of the season, but that early season to Christmas, you really, really want to get off on the good foot as much as possible. What transpired those couple weeks there?
Yeah, I think I think the best part about those couple of weeks was confidence. We needed some confidence after that first one, and I would say we played all that great when beating those teams, but they were big wins for us, each one of them. And I kind of highlighted that Cincinnati Christian win as one of the big wins of that year. On paper, you're not supposed to beat them, and they had this kind of aura about them when they were in our gym that this is just going to be ho hum, and we're going to walk through here and be done and go play our other games that we came here for. And they had a good team and a good size, and if I remember right, it was kind of back and forth, but then we just controlled it down the end. And that right there kind of I think in my mind started some things that said, you know what, we're gonna be okay. And I think for me anyway, and for kind of how I like to play and like the teams to play is our offense is always going to be behind our defense, and because we spend so much time playing defense, and because I felt like defensively, that's how we're going to make any type of run in the postseason. And to do what we did against them defensively was really, really satisfying. And then going into Mount Aloysius, we traveled. They got their new arena, a great facility. I don't know, had we beat them up to that point? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think we did.
Not in a while.
And it's last year, the game before Christmas was just a nightmare, and this was just a way to kind of send off into Christmas with a great win. And I can remember that game too. We didn't play all that great. We didn't shoot the ball that great, but we did some things there. Some of those intangible things, the steals and some just hustle things. I can remember, CJ poking the ball away a couple of times late, and going the other end for a dunk or whatever. And we did little things in that game to win, and win fairly convincingly, in their place. And so that was a great thing. And to go off into Christmas just with that one loss was really, I think we were confident. We felt good about things.
It's just amazing, the role reversal of the year before going into Christmas, and Bob was reminiscing about having to take the Arizona boys to the airport, and basically wouldn't let them out of the locker room after that game. And it's just amazing. This is such a better way to send off into Christmas, especially with guys who are going to travel so far.
Right.
And we come back in early January and beat Karen close by 3 and then beat Penn State Abington at the buzzer. I had forgotten about this game, mostly because it was on the road and we weren't there, or I wasn't there anyway. But kind of a win to, and as we're going to see later in the year, probably a team we shouldn't have just beaten by 2 to begin with, but it's a hard place to play. It's in the afternoon. If I recall, Bob, you've been there before. I have not, but it's sunny, correct?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just a strange place there. So take us through those first early couple of wins about winning those early games, and then also that buzzer beater. And now we can win close games, we can win blowouts, we can do it with defense, we can do it with offense. What are you starting to sense here from this team?
Yeah, I'm glad you stopped at that Abington game, because that was another one that was pivotal. And you're right. The sun at the one end of the gym. When you're going that way, and of course the visitor is in the second half, it's brutal. It's very brutal. And they had a good player, a big kid. I don't remember what his name was, but he was a stud and a good player. And we CJ wins on a buzzer beater, and it was great. Everything was great. It was just an awesome thing. But the biggest thing about that game and this story is what happens after that. And so, it's a buzzer beater. We travel home. It's late. Next morning, when we get back and we have we meet before we go to bed, and what do you think I say about tomorrow morning? Get to class, right? Get to class. So it just comes up informally over the next, morning that so-and-so didn't go to class and so-and-so didn't go to class. And before I know it, I got about 4 or 5 guys that didn't go to class. And I said, okay, if this is what we're going to do, all right. The problem with that day was the same day that the film crew was there to shoot the news story about Dre dunking over Dr. Tague, right? So I'm like, okay, we got some discipline issues and we got film crew coming. I'm like, okay. So, the guys get there that afternoon. They're getting in the locker room, getting ready. I meet the film crew out, and I talk to them. I said, okay, get what you need. But I said, I've got some stuff to deal with. Get what you need and get out. Okay. So they're like, okay, we'll do that. And so then I go in the locker room and I say, hey, the film crew's here. We're going to get whatever they need done. And then they're out, and then get your stuff on and get your shoes on, because we got some stuff to take care of. And, they're kind of like, okay. So we go through, we shoot this, we do the interviews and they do the filming and all that, but you could see too, this whole time, I'm not happy. And the guys are kind of like, oh crap, what's going on, so they wrap up their stuff, I kick them out the door, shut the door, I said, all right, get in the locker room, get your stuff on and meet me back out here. And so, we spent the next hour and a half, I don't know, however long it was, me talking, them running, and doing a whole lot of stuff that says, hey, you either go to class or we do this. And again, that it's one thing to have these moments and have some discipline things, and try and keep perspective right. And the best thing about that, what happened there that day, again, was responsibility. And there might have been some guys mad at me, but our team leaders weren't mad at me. Those guys were mad at each other. Even some of them that didn't go to class, they took it on. And so, when you're running lines and people are throwing up and all that kind of stuff, you look to blame anybody. They blamed each other verbally, and they said, don't do this again. And it was just one of those times again where it's like, okay, they're taking ownership of what's going on, messed up, let's not do it again, but we're going to take responsibility for this. And they did, and it was a great thing.
That's a great story. I didn't know that one. That's great. This is why we're doing this.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that either.
Man, anytime I see that video of that news story.
Oh, great.
I don't think about the news story. I think about what happened after that. And again, probably one of my top 5 conditioning sessions. So.
There you go. See, this is great. What a great year this is. That's good. So we a few more wins there. Beat Valley Forge, kind of a close game here, and then take 2 in upstate New York. So the streak's at 14 now. I can recall the streak becoming a thing naturally, as they do.
Yeah.
It was becoming, I don't know again, I'm not on the team. I'm not in the locker room, clearly. I'm not running lines.
Right.
But did it feel weighty, like it was getting a little heavy?
What was getting heavy was how we were playing, because we started not play very well. And so, you can talk all you want. You can watch film. You can say whatever you want to guys, but when you win, it kind of just erases some of the value behind that, And what I remember about that is we just were starting to not play very good, and we go to you can
So this is great, perfect transition, beautiful. You should be on the news crew.
Right.
So we go to Wilson. This is not necessarily a team that is very good, but the gym is as big as my office. And I don't have a very big office. I recall this night vividly. I was not there. I was driving to the beach. This is one of the few weekends in the second semester where I didn't have to work at home.
Right.
So we're going to the beach. Bob, you were there.
I went with them, yes.
Yes. So you're
all the joys of being there.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Bob's texting me updates. It's going well for a while. Then, I'm driving. I would look down. Okay, great. Finally, it's not going as well, and we're having to come back. Albert has a late basket to send it to overtime. I'm literally teaching my wife how to tweet. So this is the night Leslie learned how to tweet, because normally I would just post the final score, but it was so back and forth, and we had won 14 straight games, whatever. So I'm teaching her how to tweet. I'm getting the messages from Bob, and finally we do win in overtime. We scored 21 points in overtime. That's a lot of points in overtime. We win, but then we have
for
to go
5 minutes.
That's right. Chambersburg to DC, and then Saturday is when we're going to pay for all of the sins of the past few weeks of not playing.
Right. Yeah, and that game at Wilson, besides how we played, nothing else was right about it either. You got your locker room. The gym was that small. The locker room was, wasn't it was tiny. They're just different things. No trainers, no anything. Our officials are going to come. I don't know. They get there. And it was just not a good feeling at all. We in the game, you just can't do anything right, and even if you can't do anything right, we've got better players. We should be fine. And they had a little guard that just kept hitting shots from everywhere. And it's like, oh man. And somehow we get it to overtime. And then, like you said, we score a bunch of points in overtime. We get out of there, but you left there just like, oh man, you got, back to back. You got to travel, play in the afternoon. We stayed at the hotel at Gallaudet. You just have that, different culture that starts to kind of creep in, and you don't prepare. Your preparation is in a shoot around if you have that, and it's in a scouting report on a paper, and Gallaudet's good, and they're good, and go ahead.
Well, we're not going to park too long, but needless to say that the streak ends at Gallaudet, and
the streak ends,
we scored 46 points, and not for the first time all year we're going to do that. No, sorry.
Right.
But is there some sense we want to win every game? I got it.
No.
Is there some sense of relief? Like, okay, at least we don't have to talk about that anymore.
I'd say no. I mean, there was no relief in that, again, because it had to do with how we were playing. And so if we would have played great and played hard and execute and gotten beat, I could say maybe, it's a relief, but we just, that was a culmination of not playing well. And it's like, okay, again, we're here. let's take this serious again. We got to do the little things well, and you can't take them for granted. So another wake-up call, another taking responsibility. And I think what happens after that, with the scores after that, was like, okay, I've said it before, like, let's go, but now we really did go, and defense was better, offense was better, and again, it was just some reality check.
So the next 4 games, we took it out on poor Penn State Abington the next day. I'm sorry, then after a couple of days, 94-68 win, 85-69, 79-56, and then 79-42 at SUNY Poly, which is our last.
That game.
Road.
That game was great, Zach. You guys would know about this, but we go up there and they were having. I think they got a new coach and they were playing better. And I don't know at that time if they were in second or third or something, but they were fighting for a playoff spot. I think they were doing well, and they had a couple of good players, and their gym, it's a great gym, great facility. It's older, but it's great and it's big, and they've always had great fans there. They have good student support, and they love to cheer, right? And or whatever you want to call it. But this was great because Lancaster Bible was in town, and so their idea was, let's dress up like Bible people, and let's just mock them like crazy, And they came in with their whatever robes and their crosses and blah blah blah, and talking about pastors and all this kind of stuff. And in that gym, you can stand right behind the hoop on the second level, and just yell all at us on the bench, at the whatever. And it was great because it was about this, halfway through the first half. I normally don't say too many things, but I looked down at the bench and I said, "Hey, where'd their fans go?" And it was done. It was over with, and they were gone. They were on to something else, and we just it was a great game. We were clicking on that game. It was a lot of fun.
I enjoy all those stories. That's keep those coming. That's terrific. That's great. The next day is an important day as well. We're gonna pretty much clinch the top spot with a big 55-54 win over Cobleskill. It's on Valentine's Day. Suniga hits a layup with 0.7 seconds to go. Did you think, and you can talk about that game if you'd like, but did you think that this was a team you were going to see again?
Yeah, we thought so. Again, this was on the second day of a back-to-back, hard to prepare. But I will say, give the guys credit in that game. That was really one of the first times where they knew going into it, it was a big game. We knew that they were a good team and had a couple of really good players, and they were focused. They were focused before the game. We played okay, not great, but not bad, for the second day of a back-to-back on the road and that sort of thing. And to come out of there with a win on that day was really a big win. And it was close. But again, just because of all the variables going into it, we knew that was a big win. We really did.
I remember being excited after that because it meant that we were going to host, and Bob and I were excited about that. And I think at the time the women still had a chance to possibly host too, so we were kind of gearing up for as much as we could. But it was nice to know at least we were going to be in front of our fans. The last couple of games, then we kind of cruise home. But one of the main games is the Gallaudet rematch, and I'm going to bring this up later in the podcast with Bob, but I don't recall, up until this point, I can recall it the following year, in 15-16 in the NEAC Final, but this thought of, we're going to kill this team, and I'm pretty excited to see how they're going to do it.
Right.
And I remember I had a fun relationship with Nahir at the time, and still do, and obviously you know him very well too, but all of them had taken it personally at Gallaudet.
Yeah.
But none more than him, I can recall at the time, of I can't believe we played that poorly. And this feeling, this Friday night, we had a blackout. It was packed. It was loud, and it was just this culmination of it's going to be so bad for you tonight. And Nahir hits 8 3-pointers, and we just 92-60. It was worse than that.
Yeah.
And we have this great iconic photo of CJ throwing down an alley-oop dunk from Nahir. And just, it was as loud as I'd ever heard the building. And this was a regular season game. Go ahead. Just go.
Yeah, that was that week leading up to that game, and the game it's probably one of my all-time favorite memories as far as basketball goes. Gives me goosebumps. It kind of gives me chills. I probably won't make it through this podcast without crying at some point, but that week we were on a mission, and the guys knew it, and I knew it, and we all knew it, and we had another good film session. We watched, we broke down that game that we lost to them and said, okay, we're going to make this adjustment and that adjustment. And one of the big adjustments was with Nahir. And, Gallaudet's big, long, strong. They play a really solid zone. And what we did with Nahir, first time we played him, he was just out up top, not really doing much, and he was just kind of moving the ball back and forth. He wasn't really in the game offensively. And I remember, we watched that. We said, okay, this week, let's work on that. And really what that meant is when he passed the ball, just get up close enough to where he can shoot the ball and be a threat. And, at practice, I just kept, Nahir, you're not in the play. You're not in the play. Get in there, find a spot. And then, of course, we know Nahir can shoot the ball, and it was okay. Now shoot the ball. And so it really wasn't, it wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't a surprise that happened with him. We knew that he needed to get involved, and he needed to shoot the ball for us to play well. And we had to do something different against that zone, and he did, and that was so beautiful. The other thing that we did too is I kind of went to the internets and found we already had one lob play against a zone. I found 2 more lob plays against the zone, and I said, okay, we're gonna put these in this week, which I don't typically do. I don't typically put in stuff in the middle of anything. I'm kind of the old school, like we're just, here's what we do, we're going to beat you type of thing. But we had some extra time. It was a Thursday night game, is that right? Or
Friday night.
Friday night game. I don't think we played that week.
At Penn on Tuesday.
Okay, so yeah, we didn't play that week, and so we had time to put some things in, and so we made that adjustment with Nahir. We made some, did some things defensively, but we were doing pretty well. And then let's put these lob plays in. And you're right, it was loud, it was packed, it was college basketball. It really was. And it started the game. I mean, that first, you could say minute, 2 minutes, 3, it didn't, you could draw that line wherever you want, but it couldn't have went any better. And, Nahir hits a couple threes and we get a lead. We called the play for the 1 lob play, and it just, boom, it was there. And then it was like, you know what, let's run the next one. It was like, boom, it was there. And it was like, another 3, okay, let's finish 1 more. And that was the one to CJ. And he caught it and put it in, and it was just, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And it just kept going. It just kept going. And the Gallaudet, that's a good team. There was a lot of respect for them. I loved their coach, and they had good players. But that night, it wouldn't have mattered. We just clicked, and it was a ton of fun. It was neat to see the preparation that we put into it. It was neat to see the execution of it. It was neat to see those guys go out and be successful at those things, and watch them at their very best. And it was special. It really was. It
starts really a really great rivalry with Gallaudet for pretty much the rest of the decade, and probably through today a little bit of just really competitive games, both down there and up here. They've played us tough up here, and we stole a couple games down there. So definitely kind of one of the cooler features of this season is that rivalry that we started with Gallaudet. So we get going towards the NEAC playoffs. Nccaa, Abington, and Cobleskill are coming to the Final Four. How did you prepare? What did you prepare? Not knowing, obviously, you know Nccaa in the semifinals, but then Abington and Abington and Cobleskill are pretty close, so you have to prepare for both. We talked to Adam about this a couple weeks ago for the women in 12-13, just kind of how you have to have 3 scouting reports and then you just throw one away Saturday night.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, you have some practice time, but what do you do at practice time? You know, most of practices at that time are scouts and doing things that the other team's doing, and just to get freshened up on that. And so, yeah, really difficult to really prepare going into that. We're ready for all 3. You know, obviously we're a little bit more familiar with Abington than the other 2, because we played them a couple more times, and so on one hand it's difficult. On the other hand, it was like it's going to be fine. You know, we're going to play who we got, and they're not they're in a worse situation because they got to play, and so we're going to be okay. You know, and so we'll be fine. So
we'll cruise ahead. We beat Nccaa. Nccaa's kind of pesky in the NEAC semifinals, but we're there. We got them. So Cobleskill beats Abington by 10, and so it's a rematch with Cobleskill. First game, again, we won 55-54. It's a tight game. I remember we had shoot around that Sunday. I'm pretty sure I was the person who was supposed to be the official attendant of that, so I went to both. I remember on my way, I heard "Let's Dance" by David Bowie on the radio. I thought that was a good omen. I told your dad; he appreciated that. We always had good old music conversations.
Right.
What do you remember about waking up Sunday, the shoot around prep? Obviously, this is the 2nd straight year we're in the NEAC Final. It's a different position though. Last year, a little bit of, hey, this is kind of nice, and this was really good, and we'll hope for the best. To, okay, we're the favorite. We're in our gym. We have a good feeling we should be in a good spot today.
Yeah, I think we had a healthy confidence. I by no means want to say we were overconfident or saying, hey, all we have to do is show up. That was never a thought. That wasn't in how we prepared. That wasn't anything. But that being said, that was our game to win. I haven't watched the game. I won't watch the game. It's too hard.
Yeah.
It's too hard to see the guys. That was my daughter's birthday that day, so that was different about that day. And I'll tell you a little story in a couple minutes about that. But that was tough. That was heartbreaking. I don't. Again, you're on the 2nd day of a back-to-back. You have a shoot around, a walkthrough. You watch whatever film you need to watch. But again, at that point in the year, they are who they are. We are who we are, and let's go compete. And the only thing that worried me was the pace at which they play. And if we had a week to prepare, we could have done some things different. But I feel like the pace at which they play, and pretty much, they had a senior point guard, and he'd walk the ball up the court. They'd run their offense. They had a big kid down low, a tall kid that was athletic and could play. They'd sit in their zone. And unless we were going to change the way we played drastically and press and speed them up, that sort of thing, there's some of that we're just going to have to live with. And that worried me, because that's going to limit possessions. And when you limit possessions, it makes every single possession that much more valuable. And, in games like that, you look up and it's like, there's already 8 minutes gone. There's already 12 minutes. It's like, man, we're already through the first half, and it's just like, when are we going to get going? And credit to them. They dictated that with their pace and their comfortability with that. And Could we have done some things differently going back? Yeah, we could have. We definitely could have, and probably should have. But again, I felt like we've got good players, and we're going to make the plays that we need to. And really, the only thing in the game that really jumps out is the last play offensively for us, where I think it was out of a timeout, and it was again, we set some things up against their zone, and we had what we wanted, and I think we turned it over, and we just didn't execute when we needed to, and it was kind of right there for us, and yeah, that was tough. That was tough.
Right, and so I'll just quickly walk through.
Yeah.
It's 11-7 us 10 minutes into the game.
Yeah.
Just to your point, we trailed for a bit, then we were up 6 at half. It's looking exactly like the regular season game. No one's getting to 60. You can kind of tell. They're winning in the second half. We're down by 2 with 2:30 to play. Albert gets a layup and the foul makes the bucket. We're up by 1. Probably, to your point, good players making big plays towards the end of a game. I think, I can't imagine it was quiet in the gym. I don't have a ton of recollection on that play, but we go down by 3. Down by 1. Turn the ball over, like you said there. They hit some free throws. We're down by 3. I had forgotten about this last 10 seconds. I'm sure you didn't. Sorry to bring it up. But I had forgotten that we draw this play up, but we turned it over again. But Nahir chases this kid down and tips it away. And actually, we get one more shot, and CJ just misses. Yeah. I have not watched this game either. I'm not doing it either. But
I don't.
CJ's ball going towards the basket in front of the student section, I can replay that in my head thinking, this is going to go in and someone's going to, CJ's going to get hurt by our students because they're going to tackle him and we're going to have to go to overtime. And it just missed.
I think that's, again, kind of what made it even more difficult was it wasn't, we had our chances. Out of everything that happened in that game, right, wrong, and it doesn't matter, we still had our chances. And, they won. And there's we just couldn't do anything about it. And when that buzzer went off, and that was tough. I mean, we worked so hard. That was our everything. At that time, that was our everything. And I wouldn't go as far as say we felt like failures, but at the same time, in that moment, we felt like failures, and that was tough. And one of the toughest things about that, kind of going back to the story, I said, we're sitting in the locker room, and I didn't make them watch them cut down the nets this year. The year before I did, and I'm glad we did because that stuck with everybody, and that was hard. But in the locker room, we're just, we're distraught. There's not a dry eye in the room, and we're just sitting there. What do you say? There's nothing to say. There's nothing to do. And like I said earlier, it was my daughter's birthday. It was her 3rd birthday, and my family would come to practices, come to games. They were there. They were a part of who we were. The guys loved them, and they would always make cookies. Make cupcakes and bring them to the practice and pass them out. It was one of their favorite things to do. And it was my daughter's birthday, so Brooklyn, wanted to make cupcakes for everybody, or cookies, or whatever it was. And she comes in the locker room to celebrate her birthday, and pass out the cookies. And, everybody's got, their towel or their jersey or something, and I have to stand up and say, today's Brooklyn's birthday, and she made something for you, and she loves you. And so she walks around to every single guy, and every single guy takes one out and says thank you as best as they could. And then we proceeded to sing the worst rendition of Happy Birthday that you've ever heard in your life. It was awful. And It was terrible. And, you know, it's with her and, you know, Daddy, why is everybody crying? And man, it went from hard to worse to like, but then it's like, you know, your kids don't care. They love you and they care about you. But you care so much that they start crying. It's just terrible, you know, and it's just an awful, awful day. And I say that in light of, it really wasn't bad. It's a basketball game and we're all going to live and be okay. But for where we were at, it was really hard, and it was really heartbreaking.
Absolutely. And I, you know, you didn't, I mean, I'm sure you were thinking of them from afar the following year, or maybe even watching, I don't know, but they, just like we talked about the Gallaudet game, then there was being no chance of them losing. It was the same a year later. You didn't make them watch to cut the nets down, but they knew exactly what was going on in that wall behind them in the gym. And that feeling, I've had it twice, that Gallaudet game, and then the next year against Morrisville State, that Morrisville State could have trotted out 5 NBA players and they would have lost to us that day. There was just no possible way they were losing. And I think a lot of it stems from that year before. This is not happening a third year. This is not happening again this way, and things like that. So we'll go back to the highs of the year. That's plenty. Although I feel like we should finish with the cupcake story, but there's more to talk about. So somehow, like the year before, we have to play 3 days later, and you somehow convinced the guys. I would love to know the magic trick that you did for 2 years. But
I would love to take credit for it, but it wasn't me. You know, we had to meet. You know, we had to get back together, and that was on a Sunday, so this was Monday. You know, I'd sit there all night and all the next day say, what do we do? So I say, hey, let's just, if in my mind, when there's, you know, what do you do in relationships when there's heartache and heartbroken, and you got to talk. Like, you have to talk. You have to get it out. And called a meeting late Monday night and said, okay, let's talk. Let's get it out. And you heard everything. You heard everything from, I'm done, I don't want to play, what's the point, this and that. And it wasn't all, you know, in unison but it was, you know, somebody here, somebody there, and just like, and it was totally fine. Like, it was, you know, I said, hey, it doesn't matter what you say, just say it. It's okay. You know, we got to get it out. Like, you know, I'll be the first to tell you, I don't want to play. I don't feel like playing. That was from my heart. From my head, I said, we got to go play, you know? And so, but there was one guy that had heard enough. And that one guy was not here. And he was quiet the whole meeting. And then he looked up and he said, in so many words, he said, screw you guys. This is my last year. I don't get to play anymore. I'm going to play, and not only that, I'm going to do everything I can to win. And, you know, he said some other things, but that's all that was needed. And then everybody was like, let's go. Yeah, this sucks. It's over. We're here. We're here with you, not here. We're here with you, Albert. We're here with you other seniors, because there was a group of seniors, you know, Corey Leonard and, you know, whoever else was on that team, you know, that were seniors. There was a whole bunch of them. That, you know, Nahir standing up, being our leader on the court, saying, we're not done. We're going to go play, and we're going to give everything we got. That's all it took that night. And to at least convince our heads, our hearts didn't change just like that, but we got the heads right. And it took a couple of days of practice to kind of work through our hearts. And then it really took beating Valley Forge to really work that out, because we needed to work it out on the court. And yeah, they didn't stand a chance of winning that game either. But it really was Nahir stepping up in that locker room saying, I'm not done. And it helped me. It helped me to know that I had a group of guys there that wanted to go play. Because I can, you know, coaches can say whatever they want, whether they mean it or not, you know, and they can try and motivate and do this or that. But when a leader, when he jumps in and says, let's go with that amount of authority and confidence, we all jumped on and said, we're with you. Let's go.
So yeah, like you said, we beat Valley Forge and win the East Region and go back to the national tournament. We beat Manhattan Christian in the first game and get back to the semifinals like the year before, and had to play Grace Bible, who at that point is kind of the class of NCCA Division II. I think they won just about a lot of them. I mean, this is who Valley Forge had so many great battles with earlier in the decade, and they've been good forever, basically, in Division II, and able to get past them as well. Good defensive game, and sets up this national tournament game that it's over spring break. There's some people, parents for the most part, there, and play Hillsdale Baptist. I don't recall what seed we were in the tournament.
Yeah, so we were
Hillsdale's 8 seed, and there's only 10 teams, so they had a little run themselves to get to the finals.
So we were the number 2 seed. Number 1 seed at that time was Ohio Christian, which had won back-to-back national championships 2 years before that. So the one thing that we had with us kind of in our back pocket going into this tournament was we need to go beat Ohio Christian. They weren't well liked. They were good. And we wanted to be the team that went and beat them. We felt like the year before we should have, we didn't do our end, hold up our end of the bargain to meet them in the finals, to play them, which we really wanted to, because we felt like the year before we could have beat them. And so this year it was like, okay, kind of leading into this, in our minds, when we looked at the field, looked at the teams, we said, okay, there's some decent teams there, but we really thought it was us in Ohio. We really did. And we were looking forward to that national championship game with them. Hillsdale beat them in the first round. And I'll never forget that. Everybody's in the gym, all the teams are in the gym, and Hillsdale had a really good player, and he was really, really good. And he beat him on a buzzer beater. And the whole gym was just, you could hear a pin drop. It was kind of one of those things where it's like, that's great, Ohio lost, but then we were like, well, now we can't beat them, type of thing, And so we're like, well, all right, whatever, we'll keep going. But Hillsdale had an unbelievable run, they were 8 seed. They didn't win their region. I think that's what it was. And, the way they do some seeding sometimes, not always the best teams are maybe 1 through 4, but, region winners or, that sort of thing. So regardless, they had a good team. And again, I think our biggest challenge there was like you said, was Grace in that second round. The big boys from Michigan, the experience and all that kind of stuff. And I was proud of our guys in that game to play well and come out on top on that one. And then in the last one, I don't think there was ever really too much of a doubt with that one. They made a little bit of run the second half that kind of made us sit up just a little bit, but really it was our game, and it was interesting. I think when you picture winning a national championship, you picture, the confetti and the jumping around and just, the excitement and just everything that goes along with winning a national championship. And don't get me wrong, we were happy, but we were still heartbroken. We really were. And, even in the locker room, I can remember, I think before the first game, and I probably said it each game, I said, this isn't exactly what we wanted, but we're here, we might as well win, type of thing. And that was kind of the attitude, was we're here, we might as well win, type of thing. And so, I can remember hugging a couple of the guys, and it felt good, but it didn't feel great. It was like we won and it was exciting. And, I've been a part of the NCCAA for a long time as a player, as a coach, many, many, many years, and never never won one of those. I mean, it was really special to win that for a lottery. It was special to my friends, that we played together and that never had that opportunity to win that thing, and we finally won, and it was great. But it was kind of it was a relief to win that. It was a good way to send out Nahir and Albert and those guys, but I think you could, in the back of all of our minds, is we didn't win the one we wanted.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's a great way to send off. Nahir and Albert were here for 2 years, but it 50 wins in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dave Long and Corey had been here for a long time. Corey had been, I think he was the only leftover piece from before you, being the coach, and it was just it was not what I think was the envisioned goal for 95% of the year, but all of a sudden it's this thing that we've never done before.
Right.
You get to, hang a banner in your gym. I mean, I don't know how many teams there were at the time in Division II. An okay amount of teams to be able to say we're the best of these 30 to 40 to 45 teams. I remember that feeling for sure, of just sort of, wow. I remember beating Grace thinking, oh, like, I might have something to write tomorrow. It's kind of like important to a lot of people, because I think Bob and I have talked about it as we've done this project, and it was more prevalent in the beginning of the decade. But we had a hard time convincing people that Penn State Berks was as important as Baptist Bible.
Right.
That took several years.
Right.
And I think you still have some people, even in 2014-15, that don't, beating Manhattan Christian is a school they've heard of before. Oh, great, beat them. Anybody who had their ear to the floor knows about Grace Bible. Wow, I think Pete was getting texts like, "You guys beat Grace Bible?" Like, yeah, we beat Grace Bible. It was kind of this cool thing, but it was still, and it didn't help matters that, again, not to bring it up, Cobblesville got killed in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and so it was just like. That was even more excruciating, because now we're the only NEAC team playing because Cobblesville's already gotten killed. Right. And so it was all these feelings coming together.
That was tough. I mean, I felt like, that team was built for that Division III playoff. Like, it was, I just feel like defensively where we were at, we were really good defensively, and we could go different directions. I mean, we haven't mentioned a couple guys, but Luke Roundy's one of my all-time favorites. I mean, I love Luke, but you had Luke and Bird, and if we went up against a big team, we could go big. If we went up against a little team, we had other guys. It was Herbie's first year, and we had Jordan Mellinger. We could do some different things, but overall, defensively, I mean, we just felt like we were ready for that tournament, and not to just be happy to be there, because I don't feel like we were going to be just happy to be there. But again, after winning the championship too, it was when you can leave those guys, the Lukes and the Alberts and the Nahirs and Dre, all those guys come so far. Jordan even just coming so far. I mean, there's so much that happens over the course of a year. It's such a long year, and if you want to take into account the 2 previous years before that, it's just there was a lot. It was gratifying. That's for sure. It was very gratifying, and not only that, but to see the support from LBC, the continued support, the following, I guess, if you will, the love that continued, and what I'm so proud of too about that is it wasn't just because of the basketball. There was a lot more to it than that. It was really gratifying to be able to come home, not failures, kind of like I said before, but winners, and at least see some of the hard work, pay off in a little bit different way.
Absolutely. It was, maybe we can all just kind of go around and share our feelings of the year, just to kind of wrap up. Bob, what do you remember? Or maybe you have a question or two for Marshall too. But, we've gone through all these years, and you can kind of pick these things out here and there. But what are your first couple thoughts when we talk about 2014-15?
As you guys have talked, like there's so many different things that have come back to mind. Zach, I'm not sure. Was this the first year for Wilson to be in, for the men to be?
I think it was.
Or was
Yeah, I
this
think this is the
year?
first year they had men, and they had been a part of the NEAC. But I think this was the first year for Brynathan and Wilson in terms of men's basketball. That's why we had 20 conference games, I believe it was. So, or 18.
And
18
so I
conference
remember that Wilson game is just incredible because here's a coach who had to just draw from nothing and then takes us to the brink. But our guys, and Marshall said it so well, it was a win, but it sure felt like a loss walking out of that gym that night. And then to go and have to play Gallaudet the next day. Gallaudet's just one of those toughest places to play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a massive gym, and with them being a hard of hearing school or deaf school, the fans are different. The experience is just completely different. They're great people down there, but the experience is just very, very different than playing anywhere else. So that was hard. When you were talking about the national championship too, and wanting to beat Ohio Christian, the thing that really stands out there is not only did Ohio Christian lose, but they lost on their home court too, because the tournament was hosted out there. And that that in and of itself was kind of a big deal. And I know you guys wanted to beat them, but the other thing that I totally can recall of Marshall's time with the college too, and men's basketball, you're a very disciplined coach. And I've talked to so many of the guys, they didn't always understand the discipline that you put into play, but they sure do appreciate the discipline that you put into play now, as they reflect and are like, man, that made sense now. And the fact that you made them watch Morrisville cut down the nets the year before, and were able to just not do that the second year, that's a big impact on just me personally too. There's nothing harder than trying to celebrate a team on your home court that's not your team, and that's just really hard to do. So they didn't quit. I'm glad not here. Like I think that's the thing that I heard today was so many of those cool backstories that we never heard about, Zach, and we're able to realize like there's a lot that goes on beyond the court and those 40 minutes of play. So
sure.
Absolutely. I think some of my takeaways are, obviously remember some of the games, remember some of the background stories and things like that, and learning some of these things has been great. But Bob, to your point, I mean, Nick Monroe is a coach at a Division III school. Dave Long is a high school head coach at a pretty good up and coming program here in Lancaster County, and there's other guys who are just leaders and just men, and not that we haven't had that in other programs, we certainly have, and you can name some off of other programs too, but it's just they went through so much. The guys who were here for 2 years, the guys who got to experience all the years. I mean, even take the next year's class of CJ and Dre's first year, Marshall, your first year, we were 5-21, and the next year we got exponentially better, and Albert and Nahir were lightning rods in some of these guys' lives. Javon was here for a really long time and learned a lot about basketball and a lot about himself. It's just this intersection of everyone's lives at certain moments. It's so fun to see why it is that they're crossing when they're crossing. I mean, if I'm going to be personal about it, Marshall, I can't tell you how many just deep conversations I had with your dad. And you occasionally too, for sure. But your dad would come parking. So you and your dad shared an office. For those who don't know, you and your dad shared an office. And by share, I mean, when anyone ever came by your office, you would say, Dad, get the heck out of here. And he would come see me. And so he would work at my table here in my office. And we would have conversations that involved the Bible we had a lengthy conversation on what do each of us think classic rock is. So classic rock to him is different than classic rock to me because we are different of age of about 30 years. So, but it went on. And it was just, those conversations are just I don't know, ridiculous at the time, but so invaluable when you look back and you deepen your thought process. I think that's one of the things that you really helped a lot of our players do, was deepen their thought process about the game of basketball, about not the game of basketball, about going to class on a Monday after a big win on Saturday, to lots of different things. And I think that's been the fun part of this project, is seeing all of these lives cross and try to think through, why did they cross? Because there are a lot of things CJ and Dre did, and Jordan, the next year following this, that I can trace the lineage right back to Nahir.
Right,
I can trace it right back to Albert, or whatever it may be. It's just it's so fun to be able to see those things pulled out over the course of the decade.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, you said it too, Bob, you might have said it, but there's so much that goes on that people don't see, and you're good, bad, and ugly. Even a couple of people, to throw in that you're talking about, Zach, Caleb Graves was an assistant coach. What a big deal. I mean, he led small groups. He had personal relationships with these guys that I didn't. Donovan Bratton was our team chaplain. What an impact he had. I would go to him. He wasn't always around, but I would go to him. And I'd send him a text or call him in my office and say, Donovan, we need something. We need something. I'll give you 20 minutes tomorrow before practice. But I need something, and he would come in and he would bring something that was new and different and full of life and refreshing. And, Lauren Bewley with the strength and conditioning stuff. And that was a big deal. And, it's so easy to kind of throw in the garbage can that my first year, that 5 and whatever we were, but all this doesn't happen without that year. We lost a lot of games, but man, we were in a lot of games, and we just didn't win them. And that was excruciating. I can remember that year, and at E-Town, where we had E-Town, we in their place, we had them beat, and we lost in just the last seconds. And I can remember Corey, just with tears in his eyes in that locker room, just yearning for more, just saying, what do we need to do, So I would just say, let's just keep going and keep working. But you take away that year, none of that other stuff happens. Even thinking about Nahir and CJ and Dre, there were a lot of fun plays and alley-oops and dunks and all that. People don't understand. Those things don't just happen. I had to stop those guys every single day from throwing lobs. It was after practice, throwing lobs, in the middle of practice, throwing lobs, before practice, throwing lobs. Guys, get off the court. The girls have to practice, type of thing. You're right. There's so much stuff that goes on. There's so many pieces that go into it. Our team we had some consistent team managers that year. It was huge. It was just, there's so many pieces. And, and just listening to your podcast last week with Albert, what really got me emotional last week was, Zach, when you said this was kind of the start of having mission fit athletes or something like that. And that got me emotional, because that's all I wanted. That's all we wanted. We wanted good kids that fit with basketball, and we wanted good kids that fit with the school. And to be a part of that is something that means more to me than anything else, really.
That's awesome. And
Marshall, I think one of the other things that goes to your credit is, and I think it happens with every team, but I see it right now more than any other, is not only did they play together, but these guys are still solid friends today.
Yeah.
Albert talked about, man, whenever I get to Lancaster and Nahir's in town, and like, they are always getting together still and just playing pickup together. Like, I know there's a Facebook group or a text message group that, like, they still have a ton of fun together. I mean, these guys truly did become friends for life. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think I shot you a picture from Nick's wedding last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were so many basketball guys at that wedding. And
Yeah.
it's just cool to see that, like, these are friendships that are going to last and last a really long time.
Yeah, that's so neat to see. It's so neat to see them getting married and having kids, and
Yeah.
kind of, they get to finally experience life and all this neat stuff. And Zach, you said just about, lives crossing paths, and it's really unique and special the way God brings us together, and this group and these guys and those teams were unbelievably special.
That's awesome. Well, it's been fun to look back. For those who remember you and things like that, what are you up to now?
We moved to South Carolina for 3 years and was the head coach there at Columbia International University, and let's see, a little over 2 years now. 2 years ago now, we left there and kind of came back home. And it was always, it's kind of always been a dream to work with your best friends. I always thought it was coaching with my best friends, but it's not. It's, I work in a really special place called Stewardship. It's a financial company. We do mortgages and insurance and financial planning and investing and all that kind of stuff. But really our goal and our mission is to love people through finances. And we do that together as a team. We all played basketball together. We all lived together, in college dorms and all that kind of stuff. We're best friends. Our wives are all best friends. And it's not coaching, and which is weird and different. And I do miss a lot of things. There's a lot of things I don't miss about it. But for whatever reason, God opened the door to be here. I will say one of the hardest things in my life to do, one of the hardest decisions, was to leave LBC. That was very, very difficult. I could even, say, why did that happen, Lord? Why did the doors open that opened? And I don't know, but they did, and that's okay. But that was difficult. It was difficult to leave those guys. And but I've got 4 kids now. It's super, super easy. They're 8, 6, 4, and 2. I mean, nothing to it. But we're here and in Phoenix, outside of Phoenix, and in Gilbert, and things are going really well. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I just really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about all this, and it's so fun. It's amazing. Albert's memory and your memory is just so spot on. And, Bob and I have had other seasons. So we kind of forget some of these things. And then as I look them back up, I'm kind of able to shuffle back through all my mental notes of what had happened. But it's so fun to hear some of these, this night in January. It's like, really?
Right.
Okay, great. I've enjoyed that so much. And I was really, really happy when you said you would join us. So I hope things keep going well, and for some reason you ever come back east, hang out with Albert, you let us know for sure. So
we'd love to. We'd love to get back there. We miss the Tague family. We miss Dr. Tague and Paulette, and we miss a lot of you guys. And it's not the easiest to travel right now with.
No, wait. What are you referencing?
I don't know. But there'll be a time, and Lancaster will always have a special place in our hearts and in our family's hearts, and there's a lot that we miss, and we look forward to the next time of being back for sure. So
awesome.
Dr. Tague and Dr. Tague and Mrs. Tague, they changed houses, but I know they would be thrilled to see you guys for sure.
That's right.
And tell Jess and Brooklyn and your other kids don't really know us, but tell them we all said hey.
I will. I will for sure. So, but thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun, it's been fun to listen to Albert and these other stories through the decades, and it's been really cool. So thanks for doing that, Zach and Bob. We appreciate it. So.
Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. All right. Bye.
All right. Thanks. All right. So again, that was former head coach Marshall Tague, and Chargers again went 28-3 that year, and kind of skip over them when we get to the winter as we'll fly through this, Bob, if that's okay with you, to kind of work
absolutely.
through 14. I would much rather fly through all this and that was awesome. That was awesome. So I mean, you and I worked here.
There were so many backstories that there was just so many backstories that you and I didn't even know about.
Absolutely. I work here. I can hear the gym. The basketball guys are practicing right now. Like my office has been here forever. Like, but I didn't know any of this stuff. It's so fun. This is the best part of doing this whole project is that stuff right there. So I love it. I love it. So,
for sure.
Just again, we're gonna fly through probably a little faster than we've done the last couple of weeks, just because that interview was so great. So this is a big men's soccer year. We're kind of back on track with men's soccer. 12-7-1 overall, 7-2-1 in the NEAC. Beat Nccaa in the NEAC semifinals to appear in their first ever NEAC Final, where they lost to Morrisville State, who was very good that year. Chargers went 6-1-1 in their final 8 regular season games. They were 5-3-1 on the road and 7-3-1 in all the games away from home. Kind of the big thing about this year, Bob, as I was looking it back up, those last 3 weeks of the season, we weren't home. So we didn't really get a chance to watch this team play. And then all of a sudden they were in the NEAC final. I kind of remember that being a little strange.
Yep. No, it's weird how the soccer schedule gets sometimes. And there's times when it's just game after game after game at home, and then all of a sudden they're on the road for the last half of the season.
Right.
And and somehow they do end up in the NEAC final.
Absolutely. So I just remember that being a strange kind of thing that year. Ivan Correa had 11 goals. He was the NEAC Rookie of the Year. Josiah Groff, 7 goals, 7 assists. He was a NEAC first teamer. This was the freshman year for Edward Bills. He had 5 goals. And this was also the year that Northland International closed, and we got this migration of Northland players coming south.
Yeah.
And that was Jared Goff, or not Jared Goff, Daryl Goff. Jared Goff's a good quarterback for the Rams. Daryl Goff was a good midfielder for the Chargers in 2014. This is also Enoch Navarrete. They were both all conference players, I believe, and they were just really, really strong soccer players that when did we figure out that we were getting some of these players? Do you remember that?
I don't remember that. I know probably middle of the summer is when the school made the decision to close and everything.
Right.
And,
so
I know Josh and Kim Metzler were real involved with getting students that wanted to finish up. So,
yes,
adding them to the team definitely was a big addition. Plus, Ivan or Tito, having a Brazilian join the team sure made a unique difference as well. So,
yeah, that's always helpful. So, women's soccer 12-8, 9-3 in the NEAC. They were upset in the NEAC quarterfinals by SUNY Poly 2-1. Then lost to Roberts Wesleyan in the NCCA Division I playoffs. Emily Beltran, this is her only year with the Chargers. She scored 14 goals to lead the team. Monica Lambertson, used to be Monica Horning. She finished with 11 goals, 6 assists. This was her senior year. She finished her career with 56 goals, 32 assists for 144 points, which is still the program lead. Caitlin Schuing had 10 shutouts and a 1.29 goals against average. This is also the final year for Ken Crowell. He left after the 2014 season, and we hired a full-time coach in 2015. That would be Leah Sipe. So women's volleyball, 19-18 overall, 9-3 in the NEAC. They lost a tough 5-set match to Nccaa in the NEAC quarterfinals. The Chargers did win the East region that year, and then went to the NCCA national tournament. They had a 5-match winning streak and a 6-match win streak during the season, and they were 4-2 in 5-set matches. This is sort of the prototypical Coach Bewley team, tough to beat. They would come back being down 2-1, but yeah, 4-2 mark in 5-set matches. Katie Coomer, 395 kills. Miranda Kemmer, 325 kills, 471 digs. Emily Olson, 181 kills. Joanna Butala, 206 kills, and then Grace Sherman with 501 digs. A good volleyball season and a pretty good mark in the NEAC as well. So didn't want to forget them here. That was a pretty good team that year. Men's cross country got 11th out of 11 teams at NEAC championships. They were second at the LBC homecoming race. Ted Holbrook had a pretty good year for the Chargers. Women's cross country, 8th out of 11 teams. at the NEAC Championships, second out of 6 at the Penza Harrisburg invite, and Elizabeth Florio was 29th that year at the NEAC Championships. That was pretty much
like
the
you
fall.
said before.
Yep.
Yeah, and like you said before, cross country is going to start getting better here.
Yeah, I promise. Everybody's holding on for cross country. Just bear with us. We talked about the men's basketball team, obviously, with Marshall. The women's team that year, Rachel Steinbarger was the head coach. She took over for Doug Helsel in this season. The Chargers were 24-6, 18-2 in the NEAC. They beat Wells in the NEAC quarterfinals before losing to Morrisville State. In the NEAC semifinals, they did go to the NCCA National Tournament as the East Region champion. They went 2-1 there and finished third. This year's team was 12-0 at home. And one of the games I'm going to mention later as one of the best game categories is actually, it's not, my apologies, but Katie Stover had the program record for points in a single game this year, 43 points in a 95-64 win over Penn State Berks. Aubrey Folger was the NEAC Player of the Year, 18.3 points, 12.8 rebounds per game. Stover had 71 three-point field goals, 16.9 points per game, and Shai Smith with 13 points and 13.3 rebounds per game that year as well. That was a good women's basketball team. They won a lot of games. They crushed a lot of teams. It was just they couldn't win some games. It was weird. They just had bad matchup problems sometimes. There weren't a lot of girls on the team. So if anyone got into foul trouble or was hurt, they just really didn't have much of a bench, and so that didn't really matter against some teams. But when they went up against tougher teams like a SUNY Poly or Morrisville State, it hurt them later in the year.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you look at some of these numbers of what the players were putting up, and they were fun to watch and see happen. But it's always the how deep can we go? Whereas the men's team, again, he was going 6, 7, 8 men deep on the bench, and he had some other options on top of those guys as well. And the women just didn't have quite the depth of the bench that they needed to really get where they needed to be.
Right, absolutely. So, men's volleyball. Again, this is one of the things where we're gonna look back fondly on this in a few weeks when we have Derek Bigley on the podcast. But the men's team went 1-26 in 2015. They were 0-14 in the conference. Their lone win was against York, New York. I'm not even sure they still have some men's volleyball. But that moved us to 1-3. So that means we lost 23 straight matches to end the year. And we were swept in 24 of our 26 losses. Thankfully, this is just a good job by my brain, but I don't remember much of anything about this other than that the matches were 55 minutes or so.
Yeah. There's not much to want to remember about this. So, again, if we think cross country is going to come around, men's volleyball really comes around here.
I'm begging you to hold on.
Remain. Not only do they come around, they become a very dominant program for the college.
Yeah, all the things we're doing for men's basketball right now, we're going to do for men's volleyball in like 3 weeks. So just hold on. I did have a stat for you here, Bob. This team in 27 matches had 507 kills. 3 years after this, Nate Miller is going to have 498. So just, keep it in context. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, moving to the spring, the baseball team was 12-20, 5-9 in the NEAC. This is the year they went to Florida for spring break and got put with basically every top team in Division III. So they got crushed by Denison and Worcester and Dickinson. I remember I picked them up from the airport and just talking to TJ, they put us in this group and just it was basically we learned a lot of things about ourselves on this trip. New Paltz and Montclair State. All right, great. So basically every top team around the country was in this group with us. And we learned a couple things about our earned run average and had a good time. So Nate Long hit 454, 44 hits. Justin Taylor had 44 hits as well, 19 extra base hits in those 44. Eric Carroll hit 361 with 43 hits. Braden Elliott was 2-4 on the mound, 4.19 ERA, and Zach Leonard 3-4, 4.22 ERA. Again, baseball is coming here in a few years. Next week when we talk, and the following year, we're going to start talking about some pretty good baseball teams here at LBC. 2015, the year for softball. 16-18, 10-10 in the NEAC. These are the best marks we've ever had in the program's history. Just missed out on the NEAC postseason. We were 10-4 over our last 14 games. Courtney Coser hit 421 with 28 runs batted in. Julia Diorigo, her first year as well, hit 400 with 44 hits. Kelsey Collins was terrific, 1.63 earned run average. She was 10-6, had 105 strikeouts and just 19 walks. We're going to talk about it here in a little bit, but Emily Kaufman threw a no-hitter on April 6th. I should also mention in the baseball category there that Nate Burns threw the program's first ever no-hitter, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, on March 30th as well. Also, I should mention in softball, this was the spring that my second son was born, and I remember the night they had a doubleheader weekend. They played Friday night and Saturday, and I worked the Friday night games, and I remember Leslie coming to those Friday night games to kind of take a walk with our first son and just kind of try and work some things around. And I remember I said something to Mitch like, "Hey, I'll see you tomorrow." And Leslie said, "No, you won't." And I didn't. So Mitch got to stat some games by himself. That might have been one of the first times he ever did that. But thanks, Mitch, for doing that for me. So women's lacrosse was 2-12 overall, 1-8 in the NEAC. Beat Waynesburg and St. Elizabeth. Alyssa Westner, 56 goals. Miranda Kemmer, 35 goals. Cheyenne Benson, 6 goals, 5 assists. Again, women's lacrosse, next week, we're going to talk women's lacrosse. It's going to be good. NEAC postseason coming up. So stay with us for next week's edition of the women's lacrosse program.
It's amazing some of the names that you come up with.
You enjoyed that, did you?
I know, yeah. Like, man, I haven't thought about some of those names in a long time, and they pop up again. So
this is the best part about doing this. This is fun. This is fun. Wait, hold on a second. Let me get the men's tennis.
Yeah, right.
5-5, 2-3 in the NEAC. They won their last 2 matches. Dan Soden, 8-4 in singles, 5-7 in doubles. Nathan Amsbacher, 6-6, 4-6 in doubles. And then the Holbrook brothers, each 5-7 in singles play. So a decent year for the men's tennis team. Women's tennis was 3-8, 3-4 in the NEAC. They also won their last 2 matches. Morgan Adams, 5-5, 4-6 in doubles with Bree Smith. And Kayla Weiser was 4-6 in singles play as well. How was that?
Again, great flashbacks, a lot of fun kids. I mean, I think that's the thing that we get to see. We get to see a lot of different students, and while we might not get to all the tennis matches and all those things, we do see these students around campus all the time, and it was fun to be able to go and see them play periodically as well. So the other thing that I thought about as you were talking like about Mitch, we should probably do a 5-year review of our student workers that we've had.
Sure.
Like, it's amazing how many young men and even some women that have helped us out, and how much Charger Sports Network has evolved, because a lot of things have, from 2010 to what it is in 2020, not even close to what we're doing today.
Holy cow. No, that would be a fun podcast to have some people tell some stories about how we filmed a game or sat at a game, or did you remember to put this in? I didn't until about 5 minutes to go. Like it was just, it was just so many frustrating things at the moment, but life lessons for sure.
Running Ethernet out to the soccer field behind the horse, and like that long line.
Can someone please roll this back the correct way? Please, someone, when you're done with it, roll it back out. Oh my gosh. I used to have Mitch come an hour early just so he could unroll that. Anyway.
Yeah, for real. Yep. Anyway.
Homecoming this year was September 27th. The men's soccer team beat BBC 6-1. Ivan Correa had a goal and 2 assists. Women's soccer beat Karen 4-0. Emily Beltran had a hat trick. East Region Championships for women's volleyball, men's basketball, women's basketball, and then, of course, the men's basketball team winning the NCCAA Division II National Championship. Moving on to our categories. Best game. I have a couple. I have 7 made the list this year. So women's volleyball, they defeated Wells 3-2. They trailed 2-1 and won the fifth set 16-14. I wrote this match down because it was part of a NEAC weekend when we weren't allowed to use two courts. So this match actually began at 8:30 at night on a Friday. So I'm guessing that it finished around 10:30, 10:45. I did not have that in the box score, but 5-set matches are generally, shade over 2 hours. So probably 10:45, and I'm going to assume that we had a match, at least one match before this as well, if it was part of a NEAC weekend. So I can only imagine the thought bubbles people saw above our heads while we were studying this game. So
quite possibly, yeah.
Yes. Men's soccer beating Nccaa 1-0 in the NEAC semifinals to advance to their first ever NEAC final. Again, that game was in Morrisville State. I was not there. Did you go?
I was up there because I'm not totally recalling if it had snowed some when we went up there.
I think
that
so.
Weekend, but I remember making like that field had to be plowed, and I even think Pete was up at that game with me,
Okay.
and because we watched from up in their press box area. It
Right.
has some beautiful facilities up there, and yes, while we didn't come out on the winning side, our guys still played really well in that game and had opportunities. So
Absolutely. I remember that. I remember again being somewhat surprised that we had beaten Nccaa and kind of, following along pretty closely that next day in the NEAC final. Men's basketball we kind of talked about with Marshall, but I have the second Gallaudet game. Just the feeling of being in the gym during that night was unbelievable. And then the NCCA National Championship game as well. Again, I wasn't there, but followed along really closely, and that was one of my favorite lead articles, or lead paragraph, I should say, of an article that I ever wrote. I think that was. Do you remember what day it was, Bob?
I don't, because I didn't get out to nationals that year because I think I was in Puerto Rico with a team from the college.
Excellent.
But
well,
we were all gathered around computers watching it there.
You picked Puerto Rico over Circleville, Ohio. Geez, Bob.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it?
So it was Pi Day. So it was 3.1415. So it was March 14th, 2015. So everyone was having Pi Day. So here's the lead. This is super corny, but I was pretty proud of it at the time. You don't have to be able to take pi to 1,000 places to know that this year's Lancaster Bible men's basketball team is special. And on the official Pi Day, the Chargers put the icing on the cake to their magical season as they defeated Hillsdale Baptist 78-65. Boom.
That's awesome. Yeah, well done. Your dad,
Yes.
Your father would be so proud of you for that one.
Yes, thank you. Anyway, so that's definitely a game up there. Women's basketball, I have one. And I think you'll remember, you must have been here for this. We beat Baptist Bible 91-23 to open the season. And Katie, Aubrey, and Shanice all individually had more points than BBC. So, but
that does stand out.
That was also the thing where the women's soccer team had to play that day in the NCCAA East Region playoffs. So we only had like 6 players. So we're up by clearly 70 points, and they're all still in. We couldn't take them out. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Just one of those things that's funny 5 years later. Emily Kaufman pitching a no-hitter for the softball team on April 6th, kind of mentioned it a little bit. I'm pretty sure she was only here 1 year, but she was a pretty good pitcher and shut out Penn State Abington. And then the March 30th no-hitter for baseball, that was by Nate Burns. He struck out 13 batters. That was the first no-hitter in program history. So kind of wanted to bring that up as well.
Yeah.
The biggest advancement for LBC, our next category, it's obviously going to be winning the NCCAA national championship. I mean, it was kind of a big deal, obviously. And I wanted to read from a different article quickly, a quote from our athletic director, Pete Beers, what he said after the game. He said, "Just a few years ago, a day like today probably wasn't in the minds of most people, but it's a credit to our men's basketball team and our school as a whole that a day like this can become reality. This is special." And I think that goes to what Marshall was trying to say as well. It was unbelievable that we were playing in that game, and just the support from home, when they got home, the support all season long. And we talked about it a little bit last week. We're really going to talk about it next week because I think it's one of the enduring things of next year's team. It was LBC as a whole. It was not just the men's basketball team. I mean, Marshall did a great job mentioning Lauren Bewley, strength and conditioning, the student workers, managers, all the little people, as they say, who played a part. But our fans and our staff and our faculty, like, this was the LBC train was like together. It was great.
Well, and like for us older alumni, you know, that's all we were ever playing for was for NCCAA titles. And this is the very first and lone national championship from NCCAA that Lancaster Bible College has. Over the last 5 years of this decade, from 2010 to 2015, you know, our teams have really come around and started participating and doing really well. I think men's soccer, didn't they go down and participate in the Division I NCCAA tournament in 2000, that fall?
Yeah, 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and so had they participated in Division II, who knows what would have happened? I think we possibly could have had a national championship with men's soccer. But, you know, you go back to the alumni who played sports like from the 90s and like your PBUs or PCBs, BBCs, Valley Forge. Valley Forge was dominating men's basketball for years. And, you know, go talk to our current coach about how many tournament appearances they made and everything in the NCCAA tournament and stuff. But, you know, here we go. We finally get one. And it truly is. It's one of those cool things that, yeah, it wasn't the game that our current team that year wanted to win, but it's a great way to cap that season off. You know, it was not all lost. And, yeah, we have something really cool and something pretty awesome to be proud of there. So.
Absolutely. I think another little advancement for LBC, we had kind of seen it before, but we hired a full-time women's basketball coach during this academic year, and we also hired our full-time women's soccer coach later in this academic year as well. So LBC committing more and more resources to the athletic program for us to have full-time coaches is another thing that's pretty special, and also it hinged upon the success of Marshall. And as we're seeing, and we just heard from him, he was successful on and off the floor and in recruiting and things like that, and enabled us to show that if we have full-time coaches, we can have better players. We can have more people here. We can have better programs to explore the platform that we're given to proclaim Christ in society. And it just, it was all working together, and it was really fun to see. So the best memory, I think the no-hitters come to mind just because obviously it doesn't happen very often, let alone here. Men's soccer was fun. Again, I kind of mentioned they were all on the road, but it was kind of fun to take that trip with them as well through the playoffs. And I'll come back to it again, just the blackout game versus Gallaudet, and just it gives Marshall chills. It gives me chills thinking about it. It just very few things that are more special than when the gym is rocking. Whether it be for a women's volleyball fifth set or a men's basketball revenge game, late in the regular season, it's all the same to me, and you can experience it at very different times. And sometimes you don't know it's coming, like the Darrell Epps game we talked about a few weeks ago, and other days you know it's coming, and it's still fun. So those are probably my memories from the year. What about some for you, Bob?
Yeah, I think all of those are definitely great memories. Being able to travel along with the men's basketball team on trips and stuff, kind of bummed that I wasn't at the national championship to see that this year, but just knowing that they won. I look back at, like, we started getting good at hosting cross-country events, and eventually we start having these next few years, watching cross country get better, and not just having 5 teams for LBC homecoming, but gosh, we had like 20 teams the one year in the next couple of years coming up here. But men's basketball, at both teams, women's basketball is still fun to watch and be a part of it. But there's something special in that gym when it gets loud. So it's great to see some of our outdoor teams making advances as well, and we're going to see that continue to improve. I mean, all of our teams are just so competitive moving forward from here on out, and becomes just opportunities to see them grow. So just hearing names, Zach, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing that I get out of this. Putting names and faces. You and I see so many different students, and I just have the opportunity to stay connected to many of them, and knowing what they're up to today, and the characters that they were back then, and to the young men and women that they're becoming is pretty cool.
Absolutely. That's been, like you said, one of the best parts of this. Along those lines, for our next category of who won the year, female, Emily Beltran for women's soccer, 14 goals. Miranda Kemmer did it in 2 sports. This is sort of the start of her career in that regard. She's going to have huge years the next couple of years in both volleyball and lacrosse. Aubrey, Katie, and Shanice in basketball. Aubrey's the NEAC Player of the Year. This is the first of 2 straight, just like CJ on the men's side. Courtney Coser and Julia Diorigo, again, some names we haven't thought of maybe in a little while, but they were really good at softball and were really helpful to the program there in its early years. On the men's side, Tito, Ivan Correa there in men's soccer, Josiah Groff as well, men's soccer. Mentioned CJ, Player of the Year in the NEAC. Nahir, who I'm so glad he's been mentioned so often the last 2 weeks. He was just such a big game player, and just, I don't know, maybe rubbed people the wrong way a few times while he was here, but I always loved him, and I just thought it was so great. It's just he didn't care what other people thought, but just wanted to play for his teammates and wanted to play so well, and he played so hard, and just really, really happy that people are, at least people that matter to me anyway, are remembering him the way I hoped that he would be remembered. And then I have Nate Long for baseball. He had hit 454, just sneezed and hit 454, and had 44 hits as well. So those are my winners of the year anyway.
I think all of those are great candidates, and they all stand out. Aubrey Folger is probably one of the most unassuming players of the year, though, too.
Yep.
She just went out and did her job, and and we've come to know that Shanice was just a beast under the hoop, and she really worked hard. It was great to see her get back on the court and doing it right and doing it well. So those are great names. Miranda becomes such a solid player. And then, Tito did it on the field as well as Nate Long. All these names are just really names that stand out. I agree with you about Nahir, and I love that Marshall talks about after the loss, him just saying, "Gentlemen, let's play." I mean, and that's what you want from your student leadership, and that's just really classy, and I loved hearing that. So I totally agree with you.
Our last one, what's one thing we would go back and change? I think if we're only talking about this academic year and not like we don't have the ability to see into the future, I would definitely go back and change the NEAC Final for men's basketball. But and again, Marshall didn't get to experience that next year with the new group in 15-16 and all the things we're going to talk about next week. But that loss fueled the next group, even though some of the guys weren't even there for the whole year. And they weren't bothered by the win streak the following year. They took it out all year long on everyone. And it was just so fun to be a part of that and just see, again, the lineage of that loss fueling the next year. It was great to win the NCCA National Championship, but they weren't satisfied. They were going to win every time that year. And you just, again, we have the ability to see back in time now, but you can just piece it together so well. And again, I don't know. So again, if I was just talking about 14-15, yep, let's go ahead and score 4 more points and beat Cobleskill, and we'll call it a day. And I do think that team, yeah, I don't know. I do think that team maybe had a chance to play somebody pretty tough in the NCAA tournament, and who knows. But that's one. Softball, I wish they would have won a few more games early in the year. They were really, really close to the NEAC playoffs. They've never been to the NEAC playoffs for softball. That would have been nice. But I think we kind of touched on it last week a little bit, and we just kind of talked about it here for a second. But other than that, I don't know that I would change a whole lot. This is kind of those golden years. Again, I'm not saying that we're not successful right now. I don't want to mince words here, but that was like really like a part of this 4-year stretch. Basketball had a lot to do with it, but not everything to do with it. But like, we're hiring full-time coaches. We're getting better technology on this end. We're piecing it together. We have good senior leaders. We've got like all-time players in program history. We've got CJ, we've got Aubrey, we've got Miranda, we've got Alyssa Westner, we've got Josiah Groff, we've got, Will Welsh is coming the next year. We just had Talercio the year before. Like, these are people that are, Monica Lambertson, these are people that are at the top of all of the lists of best players in program history. And they're all here at the same time. It's crazy. And so I really wouldn't change much. A couple things here and there just to tweak maybe, but for the most part, all of this stuff is going to happen because the next year is going to be better, and the next year is going to be better, and the next year is going to be better. And to see the building, I think, is another thing I'm really enjoying out of this project.
Well, it does build, and I think in the next couple of years, the one thing that continues to come out of this is the respect that Lancaster Bible College has been able to earn in the NEAC, because of some of the awards that LBC has gotten from the NEAC. Mm-hmm. And most of that is peer related. It's not just the conference and the commissioner making a decision. It is the other ADs, the other coaches that are saying, you know what, we've gone out and we've been able to represent Lancaster Bible College really well on the athletic field, the court, whatever surface that you're playing on. And that's not to brag. It's more, we're doing our thing, and we're trying to do it with excellence. And like you said, and teaching the student athlete at the same time, hey, it's not just about soccer. It's not just about basketball, cross country, you name it. It is about how do we serve God in the church and society. I think Josh Beers has always said this really well. The playing surface reveals the true character of who you are. We make mistakes. We really do. Our student athletes are not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but I think they really do go out and they really seek to represent the Lord. And our alumni and our current students, they have a lot to be proud of who Lancaster Bible College athletics is. So, just looking back over these 10 years, doing it year by year, it's pretty cool. And hearing coaches who aren't even there, and watching Marshall just well up with emotion. He handled himself really well, but these guys mean a lot to him still. And Lancaster LBC really still means a lot to him. And I just truly appreciate him. And while he might not be here, he's still a good friend of both of ours. So.
Absolutely. I was just so happy when he said yes. So I had to do this, and it's been great. Everybody we've talked to is really enjoying these, and we are too. I would, every person that says something to us, I said, "You're not enjoying them as much as me. Like, this is great. Like, these are, this is a big part of my life. This is a big part of your life. These things, and we do get to know these players and these coaches, and until Marshall brought it up, like, I forgot that it was Brooklyn's birthday that day, but I remember that. And how do you tell a 3-year-old, hey, I'm sorry these guys are all crying, but they'll take your cookies? Like, that's as a father, like, that's just like, man, that just, so that was great. That was good stories, and it was a lot of fun. So
Yep.
next week, we are going to be at 2015-16. We are going to talk with another basketball, pretty centered podcast, but if that offends you for next year, well, I'm not trying to push away listenership, but tough. So we might break next week's into two podcasts because it's going to take a while to get through the basketball one. So we'll see. But we're going to be joined next week by former head men's basketball coach Zach Filzen, as well as former men's basketball player CJ Dunston. And we are unpacking all sorts of stuff with 2015-16. And I'm super pumped to do the research for that. And I'm super excited to have that conversation and hear some of those stories. And I can't wait. So maybe we should schedule 2 for next week, Bob. I'm not sure. We'll have to talk about that. But
yeah, we
looking
will.
forward to it. And really thank Marshall for coming on today. 2014-15 was a great year for a lot of teams, a lot of individuals, and LBC as a whole. So that one's in the books. And we're looking forward to next week. Bob, thank you so much. And go Chargers, go.